Welcome to part two of my conversation with professional rugby player Ian McKinley. This is What Makes You Tick, and on this part of our conversation we speak about him pioneering the way for goggles to be worn while playing rugby, how he needed people in his life to help him through some very, very difficult times. This part is really exciting, folks, so let's get straight back into it. What was that feeling like running onto the pitch for the first time after retiring?
Yeah, it was it was bizarre because this game, I got the goggles in January, but we actually didn't play in March because there's a big break. There's a big break in that particular championship. But it was. You there, Brad?
I'm here, buddy.
Connection gone. Sorry, the connection said it looked unstable. No, it was bizarre in the sense that there were guys walking to the game with cigarettes in their mouth, with cans of Red Bull. There could have possibly been vodka in it. I don't know. So like it was just fantastic to get back to rugby, but it wasn't real rugby. And guys that I played with would have known that. So I knew this was like the first step to coming back. Like I knew there was a lot bigger and more difficult hurdles to climb, but it was a step in the right direction.
And what happened then after that? Because how long were you playing at that level before the next challenge came along?
Yeah, so I signed a 3-year deal with this club, so I was sort of finishing my second year, but I knew I was like, right, I'm going to give this a crack. I'm 24, so I have three years out of the game, and also as well, what sort of pushed me over the edge in a positive way was Nevin Spence's incident, which is just a horrendous incident. And
Could
I
you
just thought, well,
explain that
Nevin.
to people just in case they don't know?
Yeah, so Nevin, the whole Spence family incident, but Nevin is actually, he was a guy who a lot of us would have played with at underage level. He represented Ulster at senior level, but just had a really tragic farming accident with himself, his brother, and his dad. Unfortunately, they all died, and that actually happened 6 weeks after I just moved over to Italy. And I just thought to myself, I'm here moaning about the fact that I have no vision in my left eye, and I look at Nevin Spence. What opportunity does he have? Sort of get off your high horse and do something about it if you're that upset about it. So that sort of really just got me going and said, right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try. I know I've got the skills to be able to come back. I just need to constantly hone in on my skills and make sure that my depth perception's all right, the goggles are okay. Even though, and I'll explain later, Brad, they're tricky enough to play with. I can tell you that. But just being relentless in your training, being relentless in doing things that other people wouldn't do, so that whenever the opportunity came, you grabbed it with two hands. So I got myself an agent, and he basically managed to get me into one of the Eccellenza teams, which is basically the same as the AIL. Division One. Potentially, there's a couple of teams that would probably play at a higher level. So I got into we were classed as professionals. That was my job. So I remember I absolutely trained my ass off. I don't think I've been ever as fit, really. Just so that I was ready, even just for preseason, just to lay down a marker to say I'm here. And in hindsight, looking back, like that was probably maybe incorrect, because maybe there was a bit of a burnout later towards the end of the season. But I just knew I needed to hit the ground running, to make up for lost time. So did that. I was made vice captain that year. Ended up playing for the Barbarians in 2015. So that was my first year in Viadana, and the second year was going in the same way. It was going back up, climbing the ladder again, as I was sort of back when I was at school, and then managed to play for Zebre in 2015 it was. So during the World Cup, there was a few players missing, and I basically filled the gap. I played against the Scarlets, and that would have been 4 years after my last Pro 12 game. So that made me the first ever goggle wearing person to play sort of a full professional a full professional game. And subsequently then that led to a bigger battle off the field, because I played for Zebre. They asked me to then play against Connacht the following week, which was in Ireland.
Yeah.
Now, for people listening, the goggles were actually a trial basis, or it was a trial period. So basically unions had the choice whether to sign up to this trial period or not. So as it so happened, 3 nations didn't, which were Ireland, France, and England. So I wrote to the IRFU to say, listen, I've been picked for Zebre. I'm going to be coming over, basically. Am I permitted to play? And, unfortunately, they said no. So this instigated a campaign led by my family, which to allow basically rugby eye protection, or these particular rugby goggles, which were actually proven to be safer than other ones, to be permitted in Ireland. So we got 13,000 signatures in about, I'd say, just over a week, which was just, a ridiculous response. I was so humbled by it. And I got about 10 minutes from the IRFU medical board to come over and propose why these rugby goggles should be permitted. So flew over from Italy, spoke to the medical board, and thankfully a few days later that decision was changed, which opened up a whole avenue for other, in particular kids who've got visual impairments, to be able to use the goggles. And it also just gave me an opportunity to pursue my career. So things just, I actually ended up then playing against Ulster later on in that year. So that was my first game in Ireland after about 5 years. So that was obviously fantastic and humbling, apart from the results of the game. But, you were sort of just back on Irish soil, and it was fantastic. So, again, just kept on training, and got signed by Benetton Treviso, who would be traditionally the biggest team in Italy. So I was back as a professional, back doing what I love to do. But then, as I said, the other 2 nations, France and England, that posed a bit of a problem, because we obviously play in European games. And of course, who were we drawn against in our first European draw? Were 2 French teams and an English team. Yeah. So I wasn't actually allowed to play those games abroad. So I had to, like I did with Ireland, with the help of my family, sort of changed the decision from the French and English unions, and thankfully they did. So I was able to play those games, making me sort of the first goggle-wearing person to play in Ireland, France, and England, and these different places. So, just as I said, there's no better training than just playing games constantly, and was just fortunate enough that year just to was part of every game and just kept progressing. And then when Conor O'Shea became coach of Italy, that was obviously nice to have an Irishman there. You didn't necessarily need to speak in Italian to understand each other. So he, will always be the coach who helped me realize my dream, even though it was slightly different circumstances, probably not the jersey that I had imagined or envisaged in the garden. But I got called up to play for Italy in 2017. It was against a white jersey. It wasn't the white jersey of England. It was the white jersey of Fiji. And I realized this dream, and became, first person in the world to play international rugby with eye protection. So it was just, a humbling experience. We won first and foremost, so that was the biggest thing, which I know most. Well, yeah, because Italian rugby's getting a bad rap, isn't it? Yeah. So I remember a few elder statesmen or a few older players say you're in a rare category now, where your first game is with a win. So eight games later with Italy and 8 losses, I actually can understand that now. But so that's where my career took me. And fast forward now, 2020, unfortunately, no longer with Treviso, but sort of 67 games later, and 9 with Italy. It brings me to where I am today, which is sitting here in a dining room in Northern Ireland.
It's incredible, like it's like, I suppose, just listening to your story there. It was never easy. It was never simple. It was like there was always a challenge, whether it was on the pitch or off the pitch. And even getting the goggles and getting back onto the pitch to learn to understand that depth perception, and understand how to align yourself. No doubt you're a kicker, so I'm sure you had to change a couple of things when it came to kicking and the
Mhm.
technical aspect of that. And then off the pitch, then to have the headaches of, yes, I'm playing professional rugby again, but then, Jesus, I have to go across to these countries and convince them to allow me to play with these goggles. Um, did that kind of detract from from you at all, or did that kind of even drive the hunger more to nearly prove people wrong, to kind of go, right, I'll do whatever it takes, just allow me play on the pitch, just let me get on the pitch?
Yeah, no, it's definitely the latter. The chip on my shoulder got even bigger. Absolutely, because I can't stand being told you can't do things. And if I'm to be honest, from school, because of the school that I went to, it wasn't a big rugby school. You were, you'd always get people saying, "Oh, you're not going to make the Leinster schools team because of the school you go to, or you're not going to progress more because you haven't been playing at a high enough level for long enough." I used to get this from coaches, from other players and teams and that sort of thing. So if someone says to me you can't do it, that just sort of, it's like dangling a chew toy in front of a dog. Like, I mean, that just gives me something more to go after. But yeah, it was incredibly difficult, and but that was also the joy of it as well, in the sense that it always has kept me on my toes in terms of how to try and think outside the box, in terms of how can you improve your depth perception. How can you, I mean, I'm left footed and can't see out of my left eye, so how can I, without overthinking and overdoing things, how can I improve my kicking? How can, when you're in a defensive line situation, you can't see the man on your inside, how can you try and change your body shape? Maybe these technical things which keep you on your toes. But I certainly know I couldn't have done any of this without the support of my network. So my network is my family. I mean,
Yeah.
um, they were a serious driving force when we had all these issues with the goggles in those countries, as I mentioned, and every single one of them stood up and brought to the table their strengths, that they brought
Yeah.
to help change this decision. So much like in a rugby team, Brad, you know yourself, you've got guys that can push or jump harder, or are more accurate with passing, or can run quicker, but you all need those individual cogs to try and make a team. And that was just humbling from them. And now there are 2,000 people registered in the world, worldwide, that are using these goggles, which is just,
Incredible.
range from adults to kids. So that's the biggest thing, is that it's giving people who might have initially had an accident, like me, or something similar, that thought rugby was never for them again, that can use these. And kids that have to use corrective lenses, usually they struggle with that, they can use these goggles to help partake in rugby, because rugby is a game that prides itself on being a sport for everyone. So
Yeah.
that's been the biggest thing from it.
Tell me, what kind of tools would you take into life now, having been through what you've been through? Are there kind of certain things or certain values that you have when it comes to any type of challenge that you have in life?
Yeah, I think you were speaking beforehand about having Kieran Ruddock on before. But we would know Rod's well. He's probably the most positive person you could ever come across. I don't think I'll ever be as positive as him, but you definitely need a positive mindset first and foremost. You don't take no for an answer, and you need good people around you. They're sort of the things you sort of, in whatever walk of life, I would hope you need that. And support network, for me, it consisted of probably around 8 people. It can just be one person. It can be 18 people. But I think the big thing, uh, if you are struggling with something, that you have to open up. So it just, I always sort of think back whenever I'm speaking to you, for example, now doing this, I always often think, what if I didn't open up to my brother?
Yeah.
What happens if I kept that all in? It could have come out in a different way, in a more negative way,
Yeah.
and just a release of emotion. And he was able to see, and he was able to help.
Yeah.
So they're sort of the biggest things that I would take away.
I think that's a really interesting point, and I'm kind of getting kind of chills even thinking about it. Is that what you did was incredibly brave, because it probably isn't in your natural personality to be like that. but when you were overcome with emotion and potential worry, you released it. And not a lot of people do that. And I think there's a huge bravery in asking for help. And I think that's probably in life, probably one of the biggest signs of strength is knowing when you need help or when is the right time to ask for it. Because as you say, having a tight group of people around you, like your brother and your family and a couple of others, um, they all have their own skill set then to bring to the table to show that they love you and to show that they can help. Um, what
Mhm.
advice would you give to somebody who is maybe finding things a little bit tough now, especially in the environment that we're living in at the moment?
Yeah, it's an incredibly difficult period for everyone. I don't think there's any point in saying otherwise. No matter if you've got a small business trying to keep your family fed week to week, it's definitely challenging. But again, I think just the biggest thing of just having an outlet, like anything, can only help you. Because I think in the rugby world in particular, you've got this macho element to you. You know, you're seen as maybe physically bigger people and all this sort of stuff, but you know everyone has feelings, and you need to, whether I'm getting too wishy-washy here, but you need to you need someone else to help you, because I know, like, I would consider myself fairly strong, but there is not a way that I could have done this on my own. Like, there's just too much to
Yeah.
would have been too much. So just having that outlet, no matter what it could be, or it could be someone, is just so important.
So even touching on that a little bit, because we've talked about your journey, and I think it's clear to see that you have an incredible, obviously, passion for rugby, which is still there, and you can even hear it in your voice.
Hmm.
But this year has been a very, very tricky year for people. Like COVID has created nearly more setbacks for everyone and created a lot of challenges, but then you're seeing a hell of a lot of opportunities and creativity coming from people that probably would have never normally been creative. And I suppose
Hmm.
for yourself, it's no different. There have been setbacks because you've been, as you said, you got signed with Treviso, and only up until about 8 months or six months ago, maybe less,
Yeah,
uh,
about
you
six. Yeah,
you
six.
you you and eight others were released from Treviso.
Hmm.
So I suppose, what role now has rugby in your life, and I suppose what's next for you? Because by the sounds of it, you're hungry and you're hungry to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 30 now, so it's
Young
been
fella,
like, listen, Brad, I
definitely compared to me,
don't,
anyway.
well, geez, the way rugby's going now, Brad, it's an under 30s game, I can tell you that. But no, it's been like 10 years. It's just been an absolute roller coaster. Like, there's just been a roller coaster of emotions that it's just really, really hard to put into words. It really is. So yeah, unfortunately, I was let go from Treviso. I would love to still be there. I've no bones in saying that. I think it's a has the potential to be, an unbelievably good club, and I think we were going in the right direction. Things have not been going fantastic at the start of this season, but um, it's a time for me, I think, just to reflect. And as you say, COVID has thrown up so many challenges for people. I think this is as good a time as ever just to take a little mental and physical break. I think if you're ever to have a little sabbatical, I think now is the time. Because even if you're in a team, even looking at Fiji, the last 2 weeks, these games are being called off. You're not guaranteed to play. So I think it's just a time for reflection, a time to recharge batteries, a time to still keep involved in rugby. Um, I'm still coaching with two teams, one school and one club. I think it's a time to try and be as close as you can to family and friends. I know, even
Yeah,
if you're living in Limerick and you have relatives in Dublin or vice versa, it might as well seem like it's Australia.
yeah.
But the fact that you can still, hopefully in a few weeks, at least have a Christmas, I think you sort of prioritize what are the really important things in life. And for me, yeah, made a choice for my family to be closer to family after a near 10 years. But yeah, I mean, listen, this COVID has thrown up so much. Who knows? Who knows where we're going to be in 6 months' time? Who would have known in one week you would find 2 vaccines? So listen, I definitely know that to play rugby is a privilege. It's certainly physically and mentally challenging the higher up you go, absolutely. But what a fantastic sport to more so now than ever to be involved with getting to know people and being involved in a community. It's there's no other sport like it that can do it. And why would you want to walk away from something like that?
True, and I suppose it goes back to memory of seeing you play against Ireland, and I
bad
love,
memories, Brad's
yeah,
bad memories.
in saying that, I was so happy for you, in the fact that you were playing against a few friends, as well as like you'd never thought about playing against Ireland when you were growing up, and then to see you actually play against Ireland, I thought was incredible. What was that like, seeing the guys afterwards and kind of being able to share a beer or whatever it was afterwards, with guys who would have been previously teammates of yours and who are still friends,
Yeah, absolutely surreal. So in total, I played 3 times against Ireland. So three games, 3 losses. So not good. Absolutely not good. So the bragging rights are well and truly with them. But I don't know. I think it actually just became like, in terms of aftermatch and stuff, it was pretty normal because you were playing against these guys sort of week in, week out at the Pro 14 level. So whether that was over in Italy or here in Ireland, so it actually was just normal. And the thing is, you don't really have that much time to sort of think about the game because you're on to the next one. So you play your game on the Saturday, you have your meal, which is all nice, but you really are into recovery mode then. And of course, you can have a few drinks and stuff like that, but you're my mates are my Italian mates as well. So you've just gone to battle almost with them, So, but of course, listen, playing against guys like, Jack, McGrath, Reese, Ruddock, these guys, it's so surreal because you remember togging out, at under 19, 20 stuff. Of course, it's surreal, but I'm still pissed off because we lost, and 2 of the games we got, we could have actually done a lot better. And one of them is probably one of the worst games of rugby I've ever played, which potentially cost me a World Cup spot. But, but listen, when you have time to reflect on these things, you go, well, like, and I think that's one of the other things as well that sort of you try and live by, is not leaving any stone unturned. And in the sense that, well, did I, you look back now, did I give it my best shot? Like, could I have actually done more? And really, you will always have a part of your brain go, well, I could have. But the vast majority is going, well, actually, do you know what? To maybe quote Stephen Bradshaw, you did all right, kid.
Sounds like a very, very intelligent young man.
A very young, handsome, Italian-esque lookalike.
Yeah. The time is telling, though.
No, Brad, jeez, no.
Speaking of quotes, you've been quoted to say, Test rugby is on hold for the moment, but you're not giving up.
Yeah.
Again, as I said to you earlier, what does the future have in store for you and on the rugby front? You mentioned that it's right now you're taking time to reflect and be with the people who are important to you and love. But now that your punditry is kicking through now, as we see on the Irish screens, what does rugby have in store for you now, whether it's on or off the pitch?
Yeah, I mean, listen, obviously, when you're out of Italy to play for Italy, it's unless you're a superstar, is obviously quite difficult. But there's a couple of young guys that have come in. One in particular, guy playing it out half for Italy, who's doing a fantastic job. So it's not as if that jersey is ever yours. I never started a game as well, which will always sort of bug me a little bit. But again, I just think you just don't know what's going to happen. Like, nobody's in a scenario where they can actually predict anything. And again, even more so with my story, I think if you went with the attitude, well, that's it, none of this would have happened. So, there could have been multiple opportunities that I could have said that, and other family members could have said, but they said, no, you can do it. You can keep going. So, as I said, we're not taking contact is going well, in the sense of, Saturday, Sunday mornings you feel great. But like, we'll just see what happens. The coaching side of things, coaching Rainey in particular is gives you great joy, because it's sort of the essence of rugby. And we were sort of speaking beforehand that's most people start from somewhere, and majority of the time it's at a club level, and it's just you know great to hopefully put back something that you've learned from the professional game into the club
Yeah.
scene. So that gives me Tuesday, Thursday nights, and Saturday at the moment. That gives me great joy.
Enjoyable, yeah. Tell me this. I would have noticed it a lot from playing rugby, that when I go into, say, business or into other avenues and other kind of ventures that I look at, what stood to me in, say, the rugby side of it is absolutely trusting the people around you are going to do their job to the best of their ability, right? And
Mhm.
not everybody can do everything, and it's about surrounding yourself with really, really, really good people, or people that you can trust. Um, what would you like? What are the things that you take into life now that rugby, say, is a little bit on uh is has cooled off a little bit? What are the things that you take from rugby into life that you feel are really, really important?
Uh, yeah, I think being approachable, making time for people, and getting to know people. So I think there's a big thing with rugby now, maybe a bit more in the professional game, where you're just trying to get a bit more involved in communities, and which club rugby is the essence of, any town, any community. Um, but I think it's vitally important, whatever you actually do come out of the rugby bubble, say from a professional bubble, which it is, because it's only a small percent of people, you know, um, get to do it. You need to have all these other skills with you, and I think being approachable, making sure that you're, a good positive influence, a point of reference for people is important, and trying to bring what you've learned from the field as much as you can into general life,
Yeah.
is massively important. And but like, I think just guys, I think, do realize, the time that you have as a professional athlete is short, particularly rugby. So you got to maximize your time, and um, yeah, just try and bring out all the positive values that you've gotten from your previous life as a rugby player
Yeah, I
into
think
the normal world.
yeah, it's and that's a skill in itself. I think yeah, being approachable is really, really good, because, like, in fairness, me reaching out to you and asking you to join me today and be part of the episode straight away, it was like, yeah, no problem, what you need. And I think what I love about that is that it just shows that you haven't changed at all who you are as a character, even though you've reached some really, really magnificent heights in terms of professional sport, and you've represented at the highest level. I think the fact that you've maintained yourself, from what I've known of you, has been brilliant, and I think it's a credit to you.
Appreciate it, Raz. Yeah, well, like, I mean, listen, like it is fantastic to play international rugby again, like, referring back to the dream and all that sort of stuff. But it only lasts for such a short period of time. It's a small percentage of your life, and I've been lucky enough to be humbled by experience. Like, I'm working with a visually impaired rugby team in England, and mixed ability
Oh,
rugby in
wow.
Italy, and all these things that are I've probably used humbling, 1,000 times during this interview, but those things, make you realize that, they're the people that are inspirational. They're the ones that, push the limits, push the barriers when it comes to inclusion and everything like that. So, those sort of things definitely keep me on my toes.
Could you
I'm
maybe
sure
expand a little bit on
whoever's.
that, and what you are doing? Because I didn't realize that. I think that's incredible.
Yeah, yes, I got in contact. Well, an organization called the Change Foundation, who are based in England, got in touch with me a few years ago. We met. Our first meeting was in the horrendous city of Venice. just at Rialto Bridge, which is a terrible place to meet. Absolutely.
It's the hardest place
Of a
to
place.
have a conversation.
Terrible. You couldn't hear anything with the boats. It was terrible. But no. So we met, and they had just set up an English visually impaired rugby team, and they had just done a 3-test game series against New Zealand in New Zealand when the Lions played back in 2017 was their last tour. So I was instantly drawn to it because it's people with visual impairments, some worse than others. But they are trying to get as close as they can to rugby, like a rugby feeling. So they've got scrums, it's non-contested, but they've scrums, they've general play, it's touch, it's non-contact, but it's as close as you can sort of get to like a rugby feel.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're in the very early stages of trying to develop that on a European scale, and then mixed ability, which is sort of started off on Sundays down in Munster, and they had a game over in Italy in Turin, and was invited to go watch that. And I didn't really know much about it, and they themselves actually had trouble with the IRFU trying to get that over the line. But when I watched that game, it was just, it was a mixture of a mix of people playing the format of rugby, basically full on contact and everything. And that was just fantastic. And to see people like that partaking in sport like that goes far and beyond anything maybe international players could do, in my opinion. Not to whatever international players do, they bring joy in their own right, but this is sort of something on a different spectrum, and just that togetherness, and people from different backgrounds coming together for the love of rugby. So they're sort of two projects I'd be fairly keenly involved in and fairly passionate about.
Well, I'll
for
definitely,
obvious reasons.
I'll get the information, and I'll add all that stuff to the show notes if people want to find out more and to delve into it a little bit more. Because I've worked in the past with the Paralympians, and the work and the effort that they do to become elite athletes is essentially what they are in their own right, is phenomenal. I think there's, as you say, humbling is an unbelievable word to use for being in situations like that, to see there's no excuses for not doing things. If people are able to find ways to compete at a really high level, and they may be missing limbs or visually impaired or whatever it is, there's no excuse for able-bodied people not to do to do more.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's sort of, I think, the thing with me. Like, I mean, I know I'm a visually impaired rugby player, but I don't want people just like you want people to look beyond the goggles. And I think that was sort of a thing that I got, after maybe a year or so in Italy, where people would just go, there is, initially it was, so there's Ian McKinley, the goggle wearing rugby player. Isn't he doing great? Like, good on him, blah, blah, blah. But now it's just, Ian McKinley, the rugby player, which that's all I ever wanted to be.
It leads nicely into actually a documentary that was written and that was created on your story and on your life, called Look Beyond, which is available on Amazon. It essentially is what we're talking about, but your family are brought into it, brother. Everybody who's, I suppose, seen you at different stages has been brought in to share their aspect of the story and how impressed they are with you and the fight that you have in your to get to where you were and where you are. Maybe just a quick synopsis of how that came about.
Yeah. So basically, like, I'm absolutely thrilled it's on Amazon Prime. I mean, that's serious work from the production team first and foremost. But I think the interesting thing about Look Beyond is that you don't have to understand anything about rugby to follow the story. So I remember on actually the opening night when we opened it in a city in Italy, the first viewing of it, and we had sort of a Q&A afterwards, and a woman stood up and said, I know absolutely nothing about rugby, but I adored this film. I adored this documentary. So it's basically, everything that we've been talking about, put into about a 70-minute piece, and it just follows myself from literally when I was a little child to basically about a year ago. And like that, just talking about the different values. Rugby obviously has an element to it, but the bigger element to it is the support of a family, and that sort of comes through in spades, which is what I wanted it to be. So it's, again, if you're not a rugby fan, you don't need to be. It's just a general story summing everything up. So I would hope it has. And the feedback I've gotten back so far is that it's got different, people have taken different elements from it, which, is absolutely, pleasing.
Great.
Very pleasing.
Yeah, I'll put the link as well into the show notes. So, Ian, while I have you, I asked this question to everybody, and I suppose I'd love to get your opinion on it, because if you had a sheet of paper and you'd one message to share with the world, what would it be?
Make the most of your time.
Nice. I think this conversation for me has I suppose it's opened my mind up into I suppose a place where sometimes you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh, I don't want to do it, or I feel a bit shitty and kind of not motivated to get going. But you put into perspective what others are going through, and as you say, with what happened, Nevin Spence, and basically things that others are doing, whatever challenges you're facing, others are still facing 10 or 12 times more, so put things into perspective. If you're able to get up, if you're able to get going, if you're able to move, and you're able to control your own actions, then you've no excuses. Just get going. We all have challenges. We're all going to be faced with challenges. No matter what happens around the corner, there's going to be ups and downs, but we get a chance to choose whether we want to go down a negative path or choose where we go out to go down an optimistic or positive path. And I think what you've done is you've embraced that time when it was dark and it was negative and it was challenging, but you spoke about it and you asked for help. And then from asking for help, you created a bit of momentum. And from that momentum, you've created an opportunity now for thousands of other people now to be able to play a sport that they would never potentially been able to play before. So I think there's huge inspiration and motivation from what you've done in your life. And listen, you're a young, fit 30-year-old with a lovely future, amazing wife, and a lovely future in store there. So I just think that this story that you've shared with us is going to have great impact with the listeners, because I know it's had a big impact on me anyway. And I've heard it before, but every time I talk to you or even delve into it a little bit more, I get something new out of it. So I really do appreciate it, pal.
No worries, Brad. It's an honor, my pleasure. So it was good to chat to you.
Always good. All right. Well, listen, we'll leave it there, and I'll put all the bits and pieces into the show notes. And Ian, thanks a million. There you have it. What a story and what a person. If you would like to follow Ian and his story, check out his documentary, Look Beyond, on Amazon Prime, and I'll leave it in the show notes. Or follow Ian's Instagram page at IanMack7. That's IANMCK7. So if this is your first time listening, please subscribe to the What Makes You Tick podcast and leave us a review and let us know what you thought of this specific episode. Tag and share us on Instagram as well. All you need to do is visit whatmakesyoutick.net, where you can leave a comment, you can send me an email, or you can visit me on Instagram at whatmakesyouTickPod, or again at Twitter at StevieBrads. Thank you all so much for listening. Until next time.